Officer walks up to your window. Good evening. Where are you coming from tonight? Seems like a simple question. Most people answer immediately. Just left my friend's house. Coming from work. Coming from a bar. Coming from my girlfriend's place. But what if that one answer gives the officer exactly what they were looking for? What if that simple question isn't just conversation? What if it's actually an investigation? One piece of knowledge can change how a situation ends for you. Subscribe now so you're prepared. Then share this video and tell me what you think about it in the comments. Now imagine you're sitting behind the wheel. Your heart rate is up. Emergency lights are flashing behind you. The officer is waiting for an answer. What do you say? Do you have to answer? Can they legally ask that? And can your answer be used against you later? Today, you're going to learn exactly why officers ask where you're coming from, the mistake most people make when answering, and the simple phrase that can help protect your rights without creating unnecessary conflict. Because in many police encounters, the biggest problem isn't what people do, it's what they say. One sentence can change the entire direction of a stop. Let's talk about why. The first thing to understand is that officers often ask questions for reasons that aren't immediately obvious. If an officer asks, "Where are you coming from?" they may already know where they stopped you. What they may not know is whether your answer matches other information. They're gathering details, they're observing your behavior, they're looking for inconsistencies, and they're evaluating whether they want to continue asking questions. Many people assume they have to explain themselves, so they start talking. A lot. Well, I was at my friend's house for a few hours, then we stopped at a restaurant, and after that, I drove across town because... And before they realize it, they've provided 5 minutes of information that was never required. This is the first major mistake: volunteering information. The more information you provide, the more opportunities there are for misunderstandings, contradictions, or follow-up questions. Remember something important. During many traffic stops, the officer may have legal authority to ask questions. That does not always mean you are legally required to answer every question. The safest approach is often to remain polite while avoiding unnecessary conversation. So what can you say? A simple phrase is, "Officer, I'd prefer not to answer any questions." Notice what this phrase does. It doesn't argue, it doesn't accuse, it doesn't escalate. It simply declines the question. You're not lying, you're not obstructing, you're not becoming confrontational. You're exercising your right to remain silent. Let's look at how that sounds. Officer, where are you coming from tonight? Driver, Officer, I'd prefer not to answer any questions. Officer, why not? I respectfully choose to remain silent. Short, calm, professional. That's often far more effective than giving a long explanation. Now, let's talk about another trap. Many people believe they can talk their way out of a stop. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. The problem is that talking creates risk. Imagine this conversation. Officer, where are you coming from? Driver, just had a couple drinks with friends. The driver might think that's harmless. The officer hears something different. Now the stop may become focused on possible impaired driving. Maybe the driver isn't impaired at all. Maybe they're completely legal, but they just provided information that creates additional scrutiny. The lesson isn't that you should lie. Never lie to law enforcement. The lesson is that you don't have to volunteer information that may create problems. This brings us to the second phrase you should know. If questioning continues, you can calmly say, "I exercise my right to remain silent." Those words matter. Why? Because they clearly communicate your intention. Courts have often distinguished between simply staying quiet and explicitly invoking the right to remain silent. That's one reason many attorneys recommend using clear language. You are stating your position respectfully and directly, nothing more. Now, let's discuss another common mistake: arguing. Some people hear a question they don't want to answer and immediately become defensive. "Why are you asking me that? I know my rights. You can't ask me that." Even if you are legally correct about something, roadside arguments rarely help. The side of the road is not the place to win legal disputes. It's not the courtroom. It's not the judge's bench. It's not your opportunity to give a constitutional lecture. Your goal is to get through the encounter safely and protect your rights. That means staying calm, keeping your hands visible, keeping your voice steady, and avoiding emotional reactions. A better response sounds like this. Officer, where are you coming from tonight? Driver, Officer, I'd prefer not to answer any questions. Officer, why not? I respectfully choose to remain silent. That's it. No debate required. Now, let's cover a question that becomes extremely important. If you're declining questions, how do you know if you're free to leave? That's where another phrase comes in. Am I free to go or am I being detained? This question can provide valuable clarity. If you're free to leave, the encounter may be ending. If you're being detained, then you know the officer is continuing the stop or investigation. Again, notice the tone. You're not demanding, you're not challenging, you're simply seeking clarification. Officer, where are you coming from tonight? Driver, Officer, I'd prefer not to answer any questions. Officer, okay. Driver, am I free to go or am I being detained? Simple, professional, clear. Another major mistake people make is confusing compliance with consent. These are not the same. You can comply with lawful commands while still refusing consent to searches. For example, if questioning starts shifting towards requests to search your vehicle, a useful phrase may be, Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Why is that important? Because it clearly communicates that any search is happening without your permission. You're not physically resisting, you're not interfering, you're simply withholding consent. That distinction matters. Now, let's talk about body language. Words aren't the only thing officers notice. Fast movements create problems. Reaching suddenly into pockets creates problems. Aggressive gestures create problems. Even if your intentions are innocent, those actions can increase tension. Keep your hands visible. Move slowly. Follow lawful commands. Speak calmly. The less chaotic the encounter becomes, the better it usually is for everyone involved. Another warning. Don't try to impress officers with internet legal advice. You've probably seen videos where people try to recite dozens of legal phrases from memory. The problem is that complicated scripts often fail under stress. Simple is better. Respectful is better. Consistent is better. You don't need a speech, you need a framework. Remain calm. Avoid volunteering information. Invoke your rights clearly. Ask if I'm free to go. Request a lawyer if questioning becomes serious. Speaking of lawyers, if an encounter escalates into an arrest or custodial interrogation, another critical phrase is, I want to speak to a lawyer. Once again, clarity matters. Not maybe, not eventually, not later. A clear request. I want to speak to a lawyer. Then stop talking. Many people make the mistake of requesting a lawyer and then continuing to explain themselves. That defeats the purpose. If you invoke your rights, stick with that decision. Now, an important legal disclaimer. Laws vary by state, jurisdiction, and specific circumstances. Certain situations may involve legal obligations that differ depending on where you are and why the officer stopped you. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice. The facts of every encounter matter. That's why understanding your local laws is important. But regardless of location, one principle remains remarkably consistent. Talking too much often creates unnecessary risk. Before we finish, remember the safest framework. Stay calm. Keep your hands visible. Comply with lawful commands. Do not argue on the roadside. Do not consent to searches if you don't wish to consent. Avoid volunteering information. If you choose to remain silent, say so clearly. Ask if I'm free to go. And if the situation becomes serious, request a lawyer and stop answering questions. The next time an officer asks, "Where are you coming from tonight?" remember that you don't have to fill the silence just because a question was asked. Sometimes the smartest answer is the shortest one. And in the next video, we'll cover another question officers ask every day that sounds harmless, but can completely change the direction of a traffic stop.